Hey, look at there. Where in the world have we been? It's like, where's Waldo?
That's right.
Professor Bats and Friends with a side of pork. Here we go. We're live. Hey, it's time to turn off the video, put it on photo. Emotional damage. Oh,
emotional
man.
damage.
Emotional damage.
I'm suffering from that.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Just a little bit. Not much, but just a little bit. Man, it has been a long time since we've had the cameras and the mics on. It's been a little weird.
Yeah.
A little weird.
Lots going on.
Lots happened since the last show. We've been a lot of places, put a lot of miles on, and I've done a little rearranging in my room, and I got this gigantic room here, so it's kind of weird. Got a new camera, and so man, we got some stuff to talk about. Going to Colorado and Wyoming. We spent a night in New Mexico. Went down the worst possible highway in the history of the world in New Mexico. And went through some of the strongest winds and the hottest winds in Kansas. So we got a lot to talk about. Man, we learned a lot on this trip when it comes to planning, arranging, stuff to take, stuff to leave at home.
The importance of Plan B and Plan C.
Oh, my gosh. We did not have anything happen right in the first 7, 8, 10 days. But we, as my good buddy Clint Eastwood would say, we improvised, we overcome, we adapted. So
that's right.
But also, like you said, that doesn't mean we can take long, cold showers till the wee hours of the morning.
No.
So anyway, Tony, how you been this week? Anything new happen?
No, I've just been back to the grindstone. Been been gone, and just I don't know, just trying to get back into the swing of things and trying to stay out of the heat a little bit. Holy cow!
It is unfriggin' believable hot.
Mr. Barry in the house.
Mason Berry's in the house. Love the hat, Porker.
Thank you, bro.
Gen Xers Overland. Can't wait to hear all about it. Thank you. Appreciate you joining us.
Hey, guys.
Miss Bats Off Road, our number one fan, sitting there in her knee cast, is taking aim at us. We talked a little bit about you before the show. Hope you get better, and we're praying for Tony because I know it's going to make his life a lot worse as well. So, man, so this trip we had planned to be gone a month, and we took off right on time, actually a little earlier than what we had originally planned, probably about a week earlier, actually. And went up. Porker actually went to. Bill Reed said they got home last night.
Hey, Bill.
Congratulations on being home, Bill. I'm glad you made it safe. But we went to Tony's house. Porker didn't actually intend on going to Tony's house. It was kind of out of the way, but went there and had to install a few things because once he put the iCamper on, some things he had on his rack didn't work.
Yeah.
And so I headed out right after school was out and got up there on a Friday evening, and we urban camped. Oh man, it was so nice. The weather was just so nice.
That was
mild, little wind.
Where I'm at here is in a neighborhood, but it's still pretty quiet.
Except for the coyotes that were howling out on the prairie, which you're pretty close to. Now, every time I go to Tony's house, you are in a neighborhood, but I have to go down a dirt road to get there. So it's kind of kind of out in the woods, but it's
well,
kind of
that's because you're being like Porker and following ways.
No, I don't use Waze. I don't use Waze. I come in the back door. Best backdoor friends are the best. So that's what we do.
That's right.
But anyway, Porker and I
business work.
took off planning on Tony joining up with us several days later. He was waiting on some things to come in the mail. And we had planned on staying somewhere in Kansas, but we just kept going and kept going and kept going. And that evening we ended up somewhere in New Mexico. I don't even remember what the name of the town was, but we were like in the northeast corner, like where New Mexico is. I mean, driving across Kansas is the longest drive ever.
Yeah.
Some people say driving across Texas from point to point, going from East Texas to West Texas is the longest drive ever. I don't know if those people have driven across Kansas. It was murder. It was hot, 102 degrees. The wind was had a wind chill of a balmy 98 degrees, I think, and it was blowing about 40 miles an hour in our face. But the further we went, the scenery changed, and we started seeing some antelope right on the road. I mean, I could have reached out and touched a couple of them.
Yeah.
And they were just one right after another. We saw hundreds of them. And we got to New Mexico and realized we were in a place that had no public land. And so right off the bat, I was like, okay, we need to make a decision here. We can either stay in a KOA or a church parking lot. But the problem is it was Saturday night, and I didn't want to wake up on Sunday morning and all the parishioners be there and wonder what in the world is going on here. So we got us a little KOA, which was nice. We got a little shower, and the wind was blowing pretty good, but we slept pretty good and had a good night, I think. But got a good picture at the New Mexico sign. That was the best sign that we actually saw the whole trip. One of the things that we had wanted to do was take pictures of all the state signs, but we took back roads into all the states that we went to. So when we went into Colorado, we didn't even know we were there.
Yeah.
When we went into Wyoming, we didn't even know we were there.
Same thing.
So, seeing that New Mexico sign, the big, gigantic New Mexico sign, that was the first one. It was amazing. Now, the Gen Xers, let's see, Mason, Pork, how's your back doing?
I'm still going for tests. I got to get an MRI this week. I've been in the emergency room once and doctor's office and CT scans, but they've not figured it out yet.
Yeah. Like 99% of the things on the pork, it's a mystery. So we're still having to solve the mystery of the pork. Gen Xer says that Kansas wind will kill your gas mileage for sure. Now, that's the first part of the story. There's more of that story coming. So when we looked at the map when we were in New Mexico to see where we were really close, I think within probably 80 miles of the Great Sand Dunes, and that was one of the main places that we wanted to go. That was on the Enchanted Rockies Trail. That's kind of what we had planned to take up to Denver. So the plan was take Enchanted Rockies Trail up to Denver, meet Tony, go up into Wyoming, and then Tony would come back to the Big Iron Overland Rally, and then we had some other places that we wanted to go explore. So that was the original plan. That was on the Go West trip, the original Go West trip that Porker had named. So anyway, to get onto the Enchanted Rockies Trail, we thought, hey, we'll just go to the Great Sand Dunes. We wanted to cross that off our list. We are these guys that like to stamp our national passports. And so that was one of the places that we could get our first stamp and go into it. We get there the next day, probably about 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning, I guess. And let me tell you, this place was packed. It was a holiday weekend. It was packed. We sat in line trying to get into the park probably for about, what do you say, Port? About 40 minutes at
Every
least.
bit of it. Every bit of it.
And I mean, we were just crawling, inching. Got up to the visitor center, and there were so many people, there was not a place to park. There was a line. They were only letting so many people into the visitor center, so there was a line of about 30 people trying to get in. But if you wanted to use the restroom, or if you wanted to stamp your passport, you could just walk in and do that and leave. So we did that. And we didn't even go into the visitor center. So that's twice
Indeed.
that I've been there, and yet have I been in the visitor center. The last time it was closed for COVID.
Oh, wow.
And so then we thought, okay, it's going to get later in the day. Let's go up and try to find a place on the Banano Pass and try to find a place to camp. So we went to a place in Air Down. We went through the awesome place where you have to go through the sand and do all that. Very first thing that happened was we met a Jeep coming back the other way. And he said, they shut the gates at 3:00. And if you don't get up there by 3:00, which it was after 3:00, by then they locked the gates. And I thought, that doesn't make any sense to me, because I remember Matt McClellan saying that they'd got there in the middle of the night and they'd camped on Madonna Pass and didn't have any problem. And he said that they were turning around about 30 Jeeps, and we were going to meet all these Jeeps. The park rangers were up there. They were not very happy, and they were sending all these Jeeps back, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, we get up there, and every single campsite is full. Every single campsite has somebody in it. We drive all the way to the closed gate, the locked gate. And then we look at every single campsite, every place that we could possibly camp. And I thought, man, if we can't camp here, I don't know where we're going to stay, because we would have to leave all the way back out the park and, just not be able to get back in. So I don't know. Talk about it, Pork. I need to work on my computer's about to die. Stand by.
Well, we needed a place to stay, so there was this tent that was sitting there all by itself with a rock on a table, and somebody had marked their spot, but it was a humongous area, and we decided we'd go ahead and set up there, and if they didn't like it, we'd pack up and leave, but if they were okay with it, we'd stay the night. So we ended up staying the night. It comes a torrential downpour, and then the torrential winds. So here we are with two brand new tents that are open. The wind's flopping. He's holding on for dear life. My bottom half's flapping up and down, kicking my feet up in the air. And then all this sand's blowing in from the dunes is all over my black tent. It was black with brown specks. So it looked like a giraffe or something that had so much dust and sand and everything on it.
It was something. That wind.
Thank you, Mason.
That was the
craziest wind.
Craziest wind I've ever stayed in. You could hear it coming, and I've stayed in wind like that before, but it wasn't quite this hard. I mean, I'm talking probably 40, 50 mile an hour gust at least, and I'm grabbing both the sides of my tent and I'm hanging on for dear life, thinking if it goes, I'm going with it. By God, I love this tent. And and of course it was hitting me to the side instead of where I would like for it to hit me, but it was crazy.
It was crazy.
The next morning we get up and the park ranger comes by, and I wanted to ask him, so I went and I stopped him, and I told him I was a police officer. We hit it off right off the bat, and Porker outfits police cars and stuff like that. So I said, now tell me about this gate being shut at 3:00. That's the first time I've heard of this. And he said, no, that's not the case. He said there was a snowstorm last week and there was an avalanche and you can't get over the pass. And I thought, you got to be kidding me. So now we're having to change our plans completely. So we had planned to go over the pass, get on the Enchanted Rockies Trail. And if you've ever been to the Great Sand Dunes, you know that there is a giant wall of mountains that's right there at the sand dunes, and there's no way to get around them except that pass, or you have to go back over 100 miles to get on the right side of the Enchanted Rockies Trail. So I thought, man, that sucks. We can't go over this. Now we're going to have to exit the park and change up our route. And so, fortunately, even though we didn't have service, we had our new Garmin Overlanders, and we were able to look via satellite to see where we were and what we were close to. We were right at 100 miles from Gunnison, which we wanted to go to Tin Cup and Pitkin and do Cumberland Pass as well. So I thought, well, this was supposed to be at the end of the trip. We'll just head there. And that was the very first time that we changed our plans because of something that happened. Now, that was a great idea at the time. We thought. Great idea at the time, we thought. But, and plus, every town that we went through, we had to stop at a Walmart. I don't know why, but we were always stopping at a Walmart. The first one, we had to get. I don't remember what we had to get, but it was something. And then the second one was when Porker's pickup started blowing across the parking lot, and I got a pretty good video.
For the ones that didn't see it, let's just go
Yeah, well,
ahead and announce it to them.
yeah, well, we came out with this big bunch of stuff. Porker opened the door to his Tacoma, and I don't know if anybody saw inside his Tacoma, but it was wall to wall stuff. I mean, just wall to wall. And his little pickup that he takes up in his tent fell out on the ground, and the wind just took it off. I mean, took it off towards Canada in a hurry. And here he goes trotting off across the parking lot. Funniest thing I've ever seen. And I'm like, I can't get my phone up fast enough.
That would have been funny.
Oh my gosh. So I got him with it in his hand on the way back. Made a little TikTok of it, but it was fun. It was fun at the time. But when we went to Gunnison, we were able to go to another Walmart and get whatever we needed that was there. And I think that was when we started thinking it might be cold. I can't remember, but we needed a few things. Had to gas up again, and to be honest with you, still around this time, gas was cheaper than I thought it would be. It was still around the $4.50 range, which that's what it is here now. So I can't imagine what it is out there now. It's got to be over $5. But
It's
I think when is it?
Yep.
When I left here, it was $3.80, and the most that we saw up to that point was around $4.59, something around in there. And so then I found the road that goes up through there, the one I had taken before. We turned on this road, and all of a sudden on our Garmin's, it said vehicle not allowed. Now, I had never seen this before. The Garmin was new, so this is the first trip I've ever done it with. And it said vehicle not allowed, and it kept telling me to turn around. It kept telling me to turn around and go a different way. But like the troopers that we are, we pressed on. And there was no gate, nothing to keep us out. In fact, on this road, there are many houses where people live. There's cabins, there's houses. There were people that were there. And so we went over this little pass. We went down into Pitkin, and we saw the little town, beautiful little town. If you've never been there, it's such nostalgic. The buildings that are there over 100 years old. A lot of people live there in the summertime. The winters are pretty harsh there, but a lot of people live there in the summertime. It's a huge, huge side-by-side community. But the odd thing was we never saw another side-by-side. We didn't see one. And we stopped at the little store, bought a few things, stuff for breakfast. I needed eggs. It's funny, I'm on a keto diet and didn't take any eggs, like the one thing I can eat. And so it was, I got me some eggs. I paid $6 for a carton of eggs, but that's okay. It's not like paying, $6 for a gallon of gas, but it kind of is.
We did that at one place.
We did that. But then we went up, and one of my most favorite places that I love to stay is up on the tunnel road just above Pitkin. We went up there, found my camp spot. Love this camp spot. We ended up. It was still pretty early in the day. It got warm during the day. We were at 11,000 feet, we were able to take our shower. Porker got to experience his first outdoor shower. And I can tell you from the sounds that I heard, I could tell you it was amazing. Yeah, it was pretty amazing. I took the time to warm my water up. He did not. He had a water port on top of his rig, and he was confident that the sun had heated his water. And he said, I'm always at home. I'm always the last one to take a shower. I always get the cold water anyway. It'll be fine. Well,
I didn't
can tell
die,
you,
so that was
it
a
was
win.
cold.
It was very cold, very cold.
It was cold. It was cold. The wind never let up. It was just brutal the whole time we were there. It was a beautiful spot. There's a cabin there with a keep out sign that's got a little baby head on the side of it, which kind of freaks you out a little bit. We filled up our water jugs. We cooked steaks that night, and they were amazing. He was shivering so bad. I don't know if he was able to taste his or not. I think he
I got a
chewed his.
couple chipped teeth from it. I got a couple chipped teeth from it.
But starting at this point right here was when we started getting in the tents about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean, it was so stinking cold after we ate dinner. We were like, screw this. We can't take it. It was getting down into the 30s, about a 35-mile-an-hour wind. We started the heaters, got up in there, and we turned on Netflix or whatever we had downloaded, and we just stayed up in the tent because it was just brutal. And we wasn't expecting that. And all the clothes that Porker had packed was not preparing him for 20 degrees, 30 degrees in the evenings.
Sub-zero temperatures. I was not ready for it.
Well, I don't think it got that cold, but it felt pretty cold.
Cold enough.
Felt pretty cold. We were right on a creek, so that made it a little worse. But it was just one of those times where we kind of felt, well, this is kind of coming out of the blue. That's the first time I had ever been in Colorado in June. I've always went in July, and I really wasn't expecting it to be this cold. There was snow everywhere. All the mountains were still covered in snow. Over the passes was still covered in snow. It was a lot colder than I expected it to be. And so I had just taken a couple hoodies and a light jacket. He had taken a light jacket and some sweatpants. That was pretty much the warmest clothes he had. So it was just a learning experience in there.
Yeah,
so June,
definitely lessons learned.
Yeah, June was. I don't know if it's that way all the time, but I had heard that they had the big snow the week before we went. So I thought, man, it may be cold up there. And this was at 11,000 feet, so we were up there. We were up there quite a ways. So, staying in the tent for 12, 14 hours, that's not really fun. Now Porker was always the whole trip on the Eastern time zone. He was constantly in the Eastern time zone. So at home, he gets up at 5:30. While we were out there, he was getting up at 3:30. And
that's no joke.
No joke. I don't know how you did it.
No.
I don't know how you did it.
Got an internal alarm clock.
Oh, man, I was sleeping good. I was warm inside my tent, and I knew how cold it was outside. I didn't want to get up. So when I woke up, I just turned over and pulled the covers over my head and went back to sleep.
See, I was sleeping pretty good during this point of the trip.
Yeah, you were, because you were at home. So anyway, Travis said low fives is the most that we paid in Utah. It's gas. It was warmer than we thought it was going to be in Colorado. And he said, man, we saw no snow. It must have been gone by the time you got there, because it was still there. So the next day we get up, we come down the tunnel road, and we go up towards Tin Cup. And when we get over Cumberland Pass, which is a little over 11,000 feet, we finally got above the trees. I can't remember what was on the sign. It's not 12,000 feet, is it? No, it was like 11,600 or something like that. I can't remember what it was. But Beautiful up there. The wind wasn't blowing too bad. It was a beautiful sunny day. We were able to see forever. It was just beautiful. And coming down the pass, I experienced something that I've never experienced before, and that was a pass with no guardrail. This was above the tree line, so you just had, the embankment, you had the road, and then you had the bluff below you. Well, half of the road was covered in snow. And so you had two wheels on dry dirt, and then you had two wheels on snow that was about a foot and a half above. So you were rocking at about a 35-degree angle toward the bluff. I was able to see down a long ways. But I saw that there were tracks in the snow, so I decided to go. Now, I was white knuckling. I was creasing my seat, and I had no idea if Porker was behind me or not. I wasn't looking in my rearview mirror for nothing.
I was
I was
filming
just
it.
going. I was just going. Little did I know he was filming it.
He's probably
And
hanging out the window with his GoPro right behind you filming it.
it was that way. What would you say? A couple 100 yards, maybe?
Every bit of
Quarter
that.
mile?
Yeah.
Around a bend, and then it kind of tapered off where it was normal. But that was
Sketchy.
It was sketchy. That was pretty sketchy. I'm glad that somebody had been through it before we had, because I'm not sure that I would have went through it.
And I would have hated like all get out to have to back out of that.
If we would have had to turn around there, that would have been catastrophic.
I'd have been ready for Kansas that day, probably.
But we made it down. We went to into Tin Cup. I got to see all the sights there, and we went up to one of the things that Porker had really wanted to go to, Mirror Lake. And you talk about a beautiful, beautiful place. Describe that, what you saw there, Porker.
Well, the ride up there was probably the roughest road that we were on the entire time, and they were places at the top for RVs, hookups, the whole 9 yards. And whoever would pull their trailer or camper up that road, more power to them, because I'd never do it. But once you got up and rounded the bend there to actually see the lake, it was breathtaking. Snow-covered mountains in the back, and you got to see why they call it Mirror Lake, because it just reflected everything. It was breathtaking at that spot.
It was.
But the the road was definitely bumpy.
Yeah, I remember that. It was like that the last time I went up there, and I was not looking forward to that. And it's only 3 miles, right?
Yeah.
Or 5 miles. I can't remember.
I think it's 5.
5 miles. And it feels like 50, because, you're just crawling. A lot of people would call that a Jeep road, because of how rough it is. And I'm no rock crawler. I don't enjoy that. We haven't posted any videos yet. We're all slackers. And,
mine's on my Facebook of us driving out that snow-covered ledge.
Yeah, and I shared that as well. But I really didn't take a lot of videos on this trip, because I really wanted to enjoy the moment. It'd been a long time since I went out west. I don't know if I'm even going to have any YouTube videos to post from this, but I really wanted to enjoy the moment. Didn't want to take anything away from it. But Mirror Lake is a place where everybody needs to go once.
At least one time.
At least one time. And there is a pass. I did notice that there's a road that goes beside Mirror Lake, and you can get out that way. I think Matt McClellan had led a group out that way, and he went that way. I noticed on my Gaia, it was one of Matt's tracks that he uploaded on there. Or you can go back down and go back into Taylor Reservoir, which what we did. Now there is a little campground. It's a National Forest campground that is up there at the top of Mirror Lake. There are 2 spots that overlook the lake. There was nobody there. Not one single person there when we were there. So if you get up there and want to camp, I think it's $5 a night, something like that. We got an update. Miss Bats Off-Road, Razorbacks 4-0 in the top of the 4th. Thank you for that. Appreciate that.
Yep.
Go Hogs.
Thanks, babe.
I don't think West Virginia's in the tournament.
Shut up.
Okay. So anyway, So anyway, we really enjoyed our time there. We had lunch. Porker fixed him some of the best ramen he's ever ate. Black bean something.
Diarrhea vomit.
He ate 2 bites and threw
I'm
it
out.
out. He couldn't
I'm out.
stand it. He couldn't stand it. I think he ate chips.
I threw the rest of the flavors in that pack away. Terrible.
Oh my goodness! Now let me stop here and say we did take a lot of food with us. We had an enormous amount of food with us because, like I had said in the previous podcast, I wanted to not be out very much money at all for food. I knew we might eat out once or twice, which we never did. But I wanted to make sure that I didn't have to restock or do anything like that because I wanted to make sure and save all my money for gas because I knew that was going to be my biggest expense. And so I had taken a case, actually more than a case of ramen, because I knew it was going to be cooler and I could fix it in my jet bowl in a minute or two. And all my ramen that I had, I loved. Now I am on a keto diet, so I threw away my noodles. And I had taken some rotisserie chicken I put in there, pretty much had chicken soup. And this is the first time I've ever been on vacation for more than, we were gone 2.5 weeks, and I actually lost 11 pounds. Boom!
Good job.
So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I was surprised. I ended up bringing back quite a bit of food that I was planning on fixing that, for one reason or another, it never got cooked. It was so cold that I didn't want to be out cooking it. Or, so hot that I didn't want to be,
Well, we saved a couple meals, at least a couple meals, because we were taken out to eat a couple times. So, we counted that in there. But this was one of the trips I was really glad that I had a dual zone fridge because I was able to keep 90% of my meat frozen. And I would keep it in the freezer. And that way, when I got home and I hadn't used it, I could just transfer it to the freezer and it was still good. Yeah. Now, before I had the dual zone, everything thawed out. And once it thawed out, I'd just have to throw it away or cook it. So I was really glad that I had the dual zone freezer. Now, later on, I know Porker had a lot of stuff that thawed out and we had to cook it at Big Iron. So it was one of those things where I was really glad to have that. Travis says fuel ended up being a quarter of our total cost for our trip, and we stayed at hotels every night. Wow. Figure that out. And hotels are very expensive. You can ask Porker because he stayed in a Marriott the first night he was gone.
So, I think fuel ended up being about 90% of my cost.
That was almost 100% of my cost. Yeah. Because I did buy a few patches and stickers and a few things like that. I didn't buy hardly any souvenirs.
No t-shirts or nothing like that.
No, didn't buy any souvenirs. Just bought patches and stuff like that, which I still haven't done anything with. But fuel was a huge, huge expense.
Try not to buy fuel in Centennial, Wyoming.
Yeah.
Because they only have 91 octane.
Yeah.
And it's $5.89 a gallon.
So Sasha says we still have lots of food. I went to the grocery shopping and half my list got crossed off with Porker saying I have that in the truck fridge. I love it.
Yeah.
But to go back to what we were talking about, Mirror Lake. Make sure you put that on your list. That is a beautiful, beautiful site. I know the road up there sucks and the road coming back down sucks, but it is a beautiful site. There was a couple guys that were wading and fly fishing, and they were just pulling one trout out after another. I mean, they were just hammering them. They probably caught 15 while we were there. And we were there for over an hour because we cooked lunch and just spent a little bit of time there. But I mean, I thought that was pretty cool that you could pull trout out of a lake like that. That was pretty neat. We came back down, went into Taylor Reservoir and spent a little time there. I aired up my tires because I knew we would be on pavement for a while. Went over the next pass going into Buena Vista. I can't remember what the name of that is, but it's the Continental Divide.
We seen
there.
our first moose in
Saw our
in
first
the Taylor Reservoir too.
two moose coming into Taylor Reservoir. That was pretty cool. I didn't see a moose on my last trip, so this was pretty neat to be able to see the moose. We saw a ton of deer. I mean, a lot of deer. We saw what we thought were wolverines, but we were corrected by Tony, and they were marmots. That one came up almost under my chair while I was sitting in it. I mean, he wanted to be our friend, and so that was pretty cool.
He was wanting some of that black bean ramen that y'all had.
Yeah, I guess so. We were having steak that night. I think he was smelling that a little bit, but it was it was pretty cool. So we went over that pass, saw the Continental Divide, got to go down into Buena Vista, fill back up. We went to a grocery store, got a few things, and then this was the second time that our trip got changed because I thought I was going one way and I was going another way, and we got to do some explorations around some Indian ski resorts. And we went up and over this one pass. I bet it was 30 miles. We were going straight up. It was unreal. We were going straight up. I don't know where we were. We ended up going through Breckenridge and Telluride or somewhere like that. I can't remember.
Was it Central City?
No, that's later on in this story.
That's still to come.
That's later on in this story. So we ended up not being able to find the campsite that I wanted to stay at. And here we were again in an area with no public land. Well, we found some public land, but there was no place for camping anywhere. It was all ski resorts. And if it was public land, it was a cliff on the side of the interstate. I mean, there was no flat land anywhere. And so we ended up saying, we got on the radio and said, well, let's just head toward Denver. We were going to meet Tony there in Denver the next day, and we would just stay at a place somewhere near Denver. And I found a campsite that was off probably about 12 miles off the beaten path. It was a national forest campsite. I thought, surely we can stay there. Well, little did I know that we would start climbing again in elevation. We would get back up around 11,000 feet. And we came into this one little town called Central City. And Porker going down into Central City, he said, I am starving to death. It was getting late. It was about 5 or 6 o'clock. He said, we haven't ate all day. And he said, first restaurant you find, I'll buy dinner. And let me tell you, there was not a place to eat in that whole stinking place that was not in a casino. And every casino had a parking deck, and we couldn't fit in it. And it was just miserable. We went through that town at least 6 times looking for a place to eat. I
ended up eating chips that night.
He ate chips that night too. So we went up to this National Forest campground, and this fog was everywhere. There was snow everywhere. There was this fog everywhere. And it was one of those nights where I had spicy ramen. It warmed me up really good. He had chips again. And and I was like, it is stinking cold. I mean, it was so cold. It was 30 degrees when we got there and dropping. And we woke up the next morning, and this fog had frozen to everything. Our tents were just frozen solid. And it was just one of those times where I'm like, just get me off this mountain. Just get me off this mountain. So we got up, didn't even cook breakfast, made some coffee, packed everything up. It was crunchy because it was frozen. And we just went down into Denver. And he said, we have got to find some more butane because we had the little Covea heaters and we needed some butane. And we went by Walmart. They didn't have butane. We went to Bass Pro Shops. They didn't have butane. We went and found a little KOA in East Denver. And he went, how many did you go to? How many hardware stores? Went to 5 hardware stores.
Got a whole whopping 4 bottles.
4 bottles of butane. So here we were going to be gone so much longer than what we had planned, and we were running out of fuel because nobody had butane. And let me tell you, Walmart had 9 million green bottles. I have never in my life seen this many green bottles of propane. They had like 9 pallets, about
Sitting out in
7
the
foot
middle of the
high,
floor. Yep,
in the
sitting out in
middle
the
of the
middle of the
floor.
floor.
That must be the way people heat their house there. I don't know, but that was the craziest thing I ever seen. So, Cottonwood.
Yeah, Cottonwood Pass. That was it. Continental Divide.
That was it.
Cottonwood.
Yeah, Cottonwood Pass. Thank you. Appreciate that. So anyway, we went to the KOA and waited on Tony to get there. He was only about 100 miles out. We were able to get showers. I washed all my clothes. And later that evening, we met up with Trail Rated Coffee. Now, that was cool. Pulled in one of the coolest Jeeps I'd ever seen. Got it all, doped up with all his graphics and stuff everywhere. Handed us out some swag. We got some hats. We got some coffee and some different things. He took us out to dinner. We had a great time.
Chris Gaines, buddy, thank you.
Yeah, Chris.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Super cool guy.
Yeah.
Super cool guy. Really nice to meet him in person. I know Cotty Wample's a huge fan. That's kind of who turned me on to him.
Yep.
And I contacted him and asked him if we wanted to work together, sponsor the show. And he was like, man, yeah, I want to do that. And he has been nothing but a friend and super cool guy to us. And let me tell you, we all, Tony kinda, but me and Porker are huge coffee guys.
Kinda heck.
You got a Keurig.
You drink food.
No, I don't.
That don't count.
I do not. Not anymore. I do pour over with my jet boil.
Tony does.
Well, actually, we're still using the regular coffee pot since.
Well, you got an extra few
but
mouths.
when Missy goes, I'll go back to the jet boil.
But let me tell you, I would not promote a coffee that I did not like.
I wouldn't either.
I love Trail Rated coffee. It is so stinking good. Now, I'm a dark guy. I like the Black Bear. I like the Imogene. But the other ones, the medium roast, they're all good. I have not had a bad one yet. And let me tell you, he's got some other ones that are coming out. They're kind of playing around with a few things. He gave us some samples of. Just wait.
Just wait. Yeah.
It's going to be good. Trail Rated coffee.
I'm not sponsored in any way, and I buy his coffee from here on out. There's certain ones that I enjoy that I'm just going to quit buying some of the stuff I buy and just buy directly from him because his coffee is amazing.
I can't even tell you which flavor is my favorite.
I can't either because every time I try a new one, I like it better.
Yeah.
Well, that Ethiopian coffee. Oh my.
See, that's the new one. That's the new one that they're thinking about coming out with. So if they do, I'm stocking up on that.
They should.
Oh, good.
It's the one that had that hint of dark chocolate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one.
Oh, it was good. Yeah, Ethiopian's probably my favorite bean anyway. And so when he brought those samples out, I was like, whoa, now come on with it. Come on with it. So we fixed that the next morning and all of us loved it. We all loved it.
Yeah.
But he gave us some more coffee. I ended up with more coffee than I could drink in 6 months on that trip. So we still got plenty of coffee and he took us out. We had some really good Mexican food that night and had a good visit with him and really enjoyed that. So Chris, man, props to you.
Yeah.
We really enjoyed that and we love your coffee. So that was pretty cool. Now, the whole time we were at the KOA that time, we had our tents up, drying out because they were crusty and frozen from the night before. So I got everything out of my tent. This had been probably 5 nights we had been in it. So I got all my mattresses out, cleaned everything out. I took a shower, cleaned all my clothes. So I want to make sure it was clean for the next several days. So it was nice to be able to take a break and do that.
Yeah.
We shared one of the camping cabins. If you're one that likes to overland and travel for long periods of time, I would highly recommend camping cabins at the KOA. They're cheap. If you split them 3 ways, they're about $27 a piece. Real cheap. You do have to take your sleeping bag and pillows in, but they're nice to get away and also very clean. You're able to take showers for free, use real bathrooms for free. So it's a nice break.
Yeah.
We did that several times on this trip. So that was one of the learning lessons for me. Utilize those, because a lot of people that stay in campgrounds are white collar people that like to be pampered, and they don't like to pull all their sheets out of their camper or whatever. So a lot of times these cabins are open. And so I would highly recommend those. Very good price, especially if you're splitting it with one or two other people. So that was really nice. Now the next day, we got a real treat. We got a real treat the next day. We met up with all of the engineers from Rhino Rack. We all got T-shirts that have gladiator or satiators on them, whatever
I
you
burnt
decide
mine.
to call
I
Don't
set
be,
mine on fire.
don't be hating.
them. But that was cool. I mean, it was not cool driving down into the middle of Denver.
Oh, I didn't mind it. That was
Felt
cool.
really out of
Seeing
place.
all
All the
that.
one-way streets. That was horrible. But getting in there, we got to pull into their shop. They looked at all of our stuff. They wanted to know some ideas about what we had thought about using their products. Wanted us to talk about new products that they could come up with. We got to see kind of what they do and how they work, and that was cool. That was a
Yeah.
treat.
It
Yeah.
was a treat.
Tony, what did you pull away from that?
I just the getting to meet the guys and seeing, all the guys behind, all the thought and
See,
all
you
this stuff.
didn't burn it.
Yeah, you didn't burn it.
I'm doing it live. I said I'm gonna burn it on live TV.
Burn it. Is that a 2X?
Yeah, it's a 2X.
But don't burn it. I know it's fair. No,
Where am I?
I enjoyed it. All those guys were super cool. Brian,
Yeah,
all the gear and the stuff that they hooked us up with. Just
that was neat.
yeah.
And to see their bins of all
The
the
fasteners, hardware.
fasteners and the nuts and the bolts and all that stuff. I mean, that was like heaven. And they handed us. I mean, they were so nice. They handed us uh, baggies and said, "Get whatever you want. Just don't take it all."
Yeah,
And I
don't
was
take
like,
the last one, he said.
"Cool." Yeah, don't take the last one. We spent 4 or 5 hours in there. It
Never
was
been
it
there.
was neat
Yeah.
being able to just visit with those guys. They're all real down to earth, and they're all engineers, so they're a lot smarter than we are. But we got to pick their brain about a few things, and that was just fun getting to visit with those guys. And they were going to take us out to lunch, but on the way we got to stop by Mile High Stadium where the Broncos play. We did a little photo shoot, got to take some pictures with Mile High in the background. That was cool.
Yeah.
And then they took us to lunch, and then we took off. Now, this is another point in the story where plans change. Tony had done his research, but we had not. And we didn't know
It
that,
was against Wee's will, though.
yeah,
We wanted to plan.
we wanted to plan. Yeah, he wanted to plan, but I wanted to just go and just see where the roads took us and my plan is actually the one we did.
Detour.
Kind of
But
had you. Yeah.
we had a rough time because we headed up toward Estes Park. Tony had told us and done some research that the Arapahoe National Forest did not open until June the 14th.
Yeah, but
And
we've been talking about this spot for months, and then
Yeah.
I didn't find out until like
the
week
day before.
Yeah.
The day before we left.
And-
And so let me tell you, we drove and we tried to take some side roads to get back in on some forest roads, and every one of them had a lock gate. Every one of them had a lock gate. We kept on
Every
coming on lock
stinking
gates
one.
and lock gates and lock gates. It was just very disheartening that here it was, the weather was beautiful, it was sunny, it was warm, and all the forest roads were locked. And I really didn't understand that. And I know they do it for a reason. I know they don't do it just to piss everybody off, but I know they do it for a reason. But that was just disheartening for us who had planned this trip. This was the time that we could take this trip, and we really had a hard time finding any place to stay.
Yeah.
So we took off on the road that we were the highway that we were going to take the next day. Ended up on accident. I just happened to look on the map and I said, okay, here's a road. If we come to it and there's not a gate, we're going on it. And so we got there, and I mean, this road went right off the side of the highway, went straight up. And
Yeah.
I mean, it was a pig trail. And it went straight up. And I said, there ain't no gate. Here we go. So we hooked them up, and there we went, did a switchback or two. And there was the most unlevel campsite in the history of the world right there waiting for us to camp. And so Tony went on up there to see if he could go to the back way, the place he wanted to go. Guess what? Lock gate. So
Yeah.
it just so happens that we found a place before the gate that we could camp. So we began stacking rocks and go treads and everything that we could find to try to get semi-level on this place. And all of us pretty much got level. I mean, I didn't slide down to where my feet were too many times during the night. But
I was pretty level. I mean, I was on a rock that was like that.
You were like, your tire was like 5 feet off the ground. It was unbelievable.
He was in a 3-story iCamper.
Yeah. Right.
It was really cool. Now, we were spread out. I didn't like being spread out like that, but that's kind of the way that we had to do it in order for everybody to find a level spot. And I love the spot that I was on. I was right beside the road, but I had the best view out of anybody. And, Porker got up the next morning and took some amazing sunrise pictures of my vehicle. And I posted those. Those were epic.
Yeah, we were able to get 3 o'clock the next morning.
Yeah, it was up at 3 o'clock the next morning, waiting for the sun to come up.
3:30.
And but we had a little rock that we could go out on that we could actually get some service. So we were able to text some people and call and be in touch with reality a little bit. And so that was kind of nice. And slept like a baby that night. It wasn't near as cold that night. That was nice. We weren't as high as elevation. I think we were around 9,700 feet. I think somewhere around in there, maybe around 10. We were watching the elevation pretty close at this point because we knew if we were below or around 10,000 feet, it would not be quite as cold. And so we were really watching that. We had that plugged into our Gaia and to our Garmin's, and that was really nice. Now the next morning,
upper 50s that night.
It was right. It was right in the 50s. Yeah, it was just perfect.
Really nice. Really great.
So perfect. Now, Porker and I had bought Rumple blankets at Bass Pro Shops. I'd always wanted one, and since it was so stinking cold, I actually had an excuse to buy one because all I had was my real thin sleeping bag and a wool blanket. That's all I had, and so buying that Rumple gave me that extra little warmth that I needed. And so that was nice, and it's so soft too, man. I just love it, and it's got the Smoky Mountains on it. So I mean, it's nice.
I'll have to go get one of those because it kind of looks like it reminds me of that Jetboil Minimo.
Yeah, it looks just like your new Minimo.
Yeah, so I might have to get one.
Yeah, Porker's got him a new Minimo now.
Yeah,
to top off his collection of all of the Jetboil products.
I use mine almost every day.
It's worth it, man. I'm telling you, they're awesome.
They are nice. I use my Jetboil every stinking day. And that's the first day that we were there was the first time I'd ever used it because I've always used my big stove to cook on with my cast iron. Now, I realized how easy it was to just make soup or stuff like that in the Jetboil. Very little cleanup. It only takes about 2 minutes and you're done. And it was amazing. Now, I love the Minimo, and we all love the Minimo because we all have one now, because they're fatter and shorter and you can eat right out of it instead of, the long skinny ones that you can't eat out of. I actually love it. So
did you know that Jetboil is kind of a dual purpose too?
What do you mean?
It works as a heater too.
It can heat your tent.
Just use the base and don't set the canister on it.
Just screw the burner right on the canister.
Yeah.
Takes up the small footprint. Yeah.
Huh. Isn't that something? I hadn't thought
now,
of that. It makes
And
fire. So
yeah, I mean, like in the extreme windy conditions, it may not do as well, but it took the chill off that first night I was in Colorado.
I was
Generally,
shocked because I was making coffee with it every morning. I decided to do pour over instead of doing my um,
Percolator.
percolator because it uses so much less fuel. And making ramen soup about every day for lunch and then making coffee every morning, I was shocked at how little fuel it used. I only
so
went through one canister in about 10 days. I was shocked.
yeah, I mean, I guess I'm not using mine as much as you, but I bought mine like 2 weeks before we left, and I used it making coffee almost every day up until then, and then
Mhm.
making coffee and a few meals when we were on the trip. But I'm still using the first canister.
Wow.
They go a long way.
They
Yeah.
do go a long way. I had 4 more canisters with me that I still haven't used. So anyway, the next morning we got up and we went to the national park there, Rocky Mountain National Park. Um, it was pretty going in there, beautiful, and we actually just went to the visitor center because the way that we were going, if we had went through the park, would have been 9 million miles in the wrong direction. And so we decided just to go to the visitor center and look around, get our stamps, get a few souvenirs, patches, whatever. And then we came back out and headed towards Wyoming. Now, this is where the fun really started for me because this is where we didn't have to encounter a closed national forest. At this
Yeah.
point, everything was open. So now there was a time going through there where I had mapped to and it was a good thing that Joe and Misty had given us some coordinates for their campsite because that's really what we used the whole time to get to where we were going.
Yeah.
And you had mapped it on Gaia and I was using it on Garmin, and we got to that one city and you said we were supposed to turn right there. And I
Mhm.
said,
For
well, mine said to keep going, and that was where it was trying to keep us off of closed roads
yeah,
because that road was closed because it was still in the Colorado Arapaho National Forest. So
yeah,
that Garmin really saved us some time there. Otherwise, we'd have went up there about 20 miles, had to turn around, and come back.
yeah.
And so that was in Fort
Fort Collins, right?
Collins.
And we were
Fort
heading back
Collins.
from
Yeah,
from
Estes Park.
Estes Park. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when we went through Fort Collins, we were starting to head north. We had to take a detour, and then I rerouted us. The good thing about that Garmin is you can do it an adventure route from 1 to 4, and I had set it on 1 so we could get through there without having to go through closed roads. And once we got through Fort Collins, I rerouted us with a 3, and we only went about 8 miles, and we headed west on this dirt road. And that ended up being one of the best decisions that we had made. That was incredible. It was beautiful. The road was like a super highway. It was better than Arkansas paved roads. It was very scenic,
Incredible. Yeah.
beautiful, beautiful road. We ended up finding an epic place to stay that night on the edge of a cliff. We had found another place that was down by a stream and another place that we could have gone that was right down on the lake, but we ended up going a little farther and was right on this kind of an overlook, and it was beautiful. I think we all flew our drones there, got some great drone footage.
Yep.
We looked all evening for some elk. We knew where they were there. We knew they were there. And Porker got up at 3:30 the next morning. When the sun came up, there was some elk down there, so he finally got to see his first elk. But that was a cool spot.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Very cool. Yeah, that was a cool spot. The wind wasn't too bad. It didn't rain on us. It was pretty, and the way that we had set our vehicles up, kind of in a pie shape, we kind of blocked the wind off anyway, and actually got to enjoy being outside pretty close to dark around that time. So that was pretty
Yep.
nice. Next morning we got up and we headed north and we saw herds and herds of elk going down the other side. We realized that they were down in the valleys by the rivers, down the valleys where the trees are, where the rivers are. We just saw hundreds of them just gathering down through there. That was pretty neat. We stopped and uh, one of the things that I realized about these national forests is they have every now and then they'll have a place that you can stop and they have a toilet, which I had never seen that before. I had never seen that in any of the other parts of Colorado that I had been in. But they have like a parking area. I guess it's for hunters or hikers or whatever. And then they would have a pit toilet there. So we actually stopped at one that was right beside a real nice river. We all got to take a whore bath with some wipes
Yeah.
and clean up a little bit. We took our time there. It was warm during the day. Took a good poo. We all renovated ourselves right there, so that was nice. That was really nice to be able to do that in that area. And then we came out in Wyoming. There was no sign whatsoever to tell us we were there. It was just we ended up being in Centennial, Wyoming. Um, we needed fuel. There was one gas pump, one diesel pump. It was $6 a gallon, and it was one of those 1972 model gas pumps that you had to go inside and give her your card or give her some cash or whatever, and say, "I'm gonna fill up," and then she would say, "Okay, well, we got a few things there." Only grocery store in town. She had a few things, so uh, stocked up on pork skins and a few things like that. So that was pretty cool. And then we headed up over another pass. There was a national forest office there that was closed. And on the way there, we looked up on the side of this mountain and saw this road going on the side of this mountain. And one of y'all said, "Oh, that looks like a cool road." And I said, "Yeah, that's the way we're going." And so anyway, we took up over this shelf road and ended up finding one of the most beautiful campsites I think I've ever camped at.
Yeah.
It was just beautiful, surrounded by snow, right on the river. It was just
There were
so beautiful.
piles of snow taller than me, like on the perimeter of this parking area where we were at, or not parking area, but remember that one pile of snow back in
Yeah,
there that was like huge.
yeah,
So, and then right there
it
on the
was cool.
river.
But the problem was, it started raining, and we're at again right at about 11,000 feet,
Yeah.
and it was cold again. And so this was the first time that we got the awnings out with the walls. Got the awning out with the walls. We backed up in there in the evening. Got the buddy heaters out, and we were actually able to sit around and visit a little while without freezing to death.
Got to use
And
the original fire reflector,
got to use the fire
kind of
reflector
help
to
keep the
help,
wind off the buddy heaters and reflect
yeah,
that heat
and
towards us.
focus the flame. That was cool.
Yeah.
But that was just a beautiful spot. I'll tell you, I would love to go back to that spot. It was and finish that road, because that road was going about another 55 miles
Hmm.
before it came out. And when we first got into Wyoming, we were kind of in a weird area that they had logged, and they had did a control burn. It was not very pretty, and I thought, man, I don't know if I'm gonna like this or not. But once we got out of that, we actually went down to a lake and had lunch on a lake. You couldn't camp there, but we had lunch on the lake. It was so warm that I actually had to get out my thermocell because there was swarms of mosquitoes everywhere.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of side by sides that were around, and it was really windy, about 40-mile-an-hour wind, and there were people putting boats in on this lake, and I thought they must really want some fish. So we
So
ended up going back and ended up coming out at Centennial. Now I would put Centennial on your list. That little road and I don't know if I think it was a forest road. It may have been a county road. I'm not real sure.
I believe it was a county road. Pretty sure it was.
I think you're right. But it was scenic everywhere. It has shelf road where you could see for as far as you could possibly see, because out to the west or to the east of this shelf road, it was just all flat, and so you could just see forever. And so that was a highlight for me. Actually, on the way back, Tony got his drone out and followed us on the shelf road. That's pretty cool. I can't wait to see some more of that.
Yeah.
But this, I don't know about y'all, but that road right there was one of the highlights for me because it had it all.
It had a lot of potential. I hated to turn back, but I'd had enough.
Yeah, it was just so cold. We weren't prepared for the cold. So while we were there at the campsite, we decided that we were going to go back to Big Iron. We were going to head back across Kansas and just go back to Big Iron, change our plans a little bit. Porker had a tragedy back home, and he kind of wanted to get back and see the family, and so we had kind of planned on going back to Big Iron. So we took off the next morning, went back through somewhere Wyoming. I can't remember what the name of that.
Cheyenne.
Cheyenne. We went through Cheyenne. Yep. That was a neat little town, and then we headed south. And then Tony got on the radio and said, "I haven't been out here very long, and I want to see some more of the mountains. So if y'all don't mind, I've got a little time, and I'm gonna go to the mountains." And so me and Porker headed. We went through about 2 miles of Nebraska, which is about all of Nebraska I wanted to see. And then Tony went up and he started taking pictures of his little campsites that he was out in the mountains. And you took a little detour from there, Tony.
Yeah, I did. I didn't really have a plan from that point. You know, I got set up, and where I was at, it was just a little bit, I guess, west of Denver. I think it was Clear Lake Campground, or it's actually a little bit south of that, but yeah, it was a little over 10,000 feet there where I was camped, and it was starting to get cold. So I got in my tent that night, and I was sitting there, and I got a text from Bill at Cottywample, and he was like, "Hey man, come on down where we're at in Arizona." so
cold there.
Yeah, it wasn't cold there at all. But you know, I laid there and I was just sitting there thinking, you know, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go. So it was like 10 after 8. The sun was setting, and I hopped out of the tent, packed up, and I was on the road in about 10 minutes. And I drove straight through that night all the way to Arizona, down by Page, Arizona, where they were. But I don't know, that was a crazy drive. That was the first time I've ever been driving west long enough to see the sunset, and then drive long enough for the sun to come up behind me.
Yeah.
You know, in the same trip. So. Yeah, that was.
Yeah, you did a lot of driving. You may have caught Porker on your miles when you did that. I don't know.
I ended up a little over 4,800.
Yeah, I didn't catch him. He's got another 11 hours, you know, east.
Yeah.
You know, so but I ended up with about 3450, I think is.
Yeah, I was right around 3, I think. Maybe a little under 3. I can't remember. I don't want to add up miles per gallon and gallons bought, though. I did not save my gas receipts because I did not want to know.
Yeah.
I did save mine, but I don't even care. I don't even know why I did it.
We got an update on the Razorback game.
Yeah.
8-0, top of the 6th. Thank you, Miss Arla.
Yeah.
We don't care. We don't care.
Yeah, I got to tag along with them and Kelly and his wife, and then Joe from The Day We Make, and that was just, you know, I got to see some incredible stuff. I've never been to Arizona, never been to Utah, you know, so I got to see some just incredible stuff with with Bill and Deb there. So
That's cool.
then
That's cool.
and
Hey,
then
Nathan.
of course that put me further west,
Yeah.
to drive back to Big Iron. So I got up at 4 that morning, the Thursday before Big Iron, and drove 1,200 miles that day in 20
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah. Yeah, you put the miles on that day, and I
That
remember it was supposed to storm, but really bad.
was
And I can tell you, Porker and I, if you've never been to West Kansas, you need to stop by and see Monument Rocks and what's the other one?
Castle
Castle Rocks.
Yeah.
Castle Rocks.
Very cool places. The dirt roads out there are freaking so awesome. Super highways. And it's private property. You don't have to pay anything to get in. You can go at any time. Beautiful, beautiful places. And we were able to see some of that in West Kansas. And I was really glad that Jason Harris had posted pictures of that last year or the year before. I can't remember. Otherwise, I would have never known about them. That was really, really a treat for us. Now that night, when you were in Arizona, we had looked on the weather and it was supposed to get real bad storms and gusts up to 95 miles an hour. And we looked at each other and said, we're not staying in rooftop tents tonight. So that was the next time that we actually got a camping cabin outside of Salina. And it was really, really nice. We stayed there. Were able to get showers. I washed clothes again. The only thing that I did not like about it is we opened our tents to get everything out, and we were right underneath a cottonwood tree, and that cotton was falling out of that tree, and it sticks to everything. And you cannot get it
Everything.
off. You cannot get it off. I had a broom trying to sweep it off. I mean, my tent looked white. It had so much cotton on it from that cottonwood tree. I was mad. But anyway, we buttoned them up, and we went to bed that night, and it rained so hard that we got up the next morning, and all the mud and dirt and everything from our vehicles was piled up on the ground underneath our vehicles. And I walked outside, and Porker said, "They're not going to be very happy when we leave here." I mean, it was just piles and piles everywhere, but our vehicles were spotless. That was nice.
Yeah.
And we went out that evening and got us one of the best Mexican steaks I've ever had in my life. It was so
It
good.
was delicious.
Oh, so stinking good. And so we treated ourselves that night. That was one of the few times we ate out. And the next morning we drove to a buddy's of mine and got to visit with him a minute. We were actually going to stay at his farm, but he was having an auction. And then Porker looked and he said, we're only like 70 miles from Big Iron. So I texted Rhino, and it was Wednesday, and I said, "Are y'all there? I know it don't start till Friday, but are y'all there?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, we're pretty close." And he said, "Come on." So we went and got there on Wednesday afternoon about 2. We got to go have some fried chicken and stuff with Rhino and Chris and visit with them and help them set up a few things that evening. And Thursday we had them help them set up a few more things. And Thursday, some people started rolling in. Thursday night was one of the craziest lightning shows I've ever seen. And Nathan actually took one of the most epic pictures I've ever seen over the top of Big Brutus. And if you will go to any of our social media pages, you can see it. It's on Big Irons. It's on Nathan. I posted it. A lot of people shared it. Just a 1 in a million picture. And that was incredible.
I'd love to have that thing printed.
Yeah,
right about there.
That would be epic.
A great spot.
That would be epic. I think that's cool. But it was a pretty crazy night, and that was the storms that you actually drove through to get there. I remember waking up about 2:00 in the morning, and my tent was shaking real bad, and I just pulled the covers over my head and said, "Screw it," and I went back to sleep. And you came in sometime around that time.
I got there. I was driving like a
maniac.
And trying to beat it.
Meowberry maniac.
I mean, I could see I was coming in between two storms basically, and I could see them off in the distance, and I was trying to beat it there, and I got there just in time. I popped the tent, crawled in, I fell asleep, and then no sooner than I fell asleep, I got woke up by, crazy wind and rain.
Yeah.
And then I don't remember much after that until next morning.
Yeah. Well, that was a pretty crazy night. The next morning, every more people started showing up. I think he had over 200 rigs there.
All the beads showed up,
and a lot of people showed up. It was really really a fun time. He had a lot of really good bands there, but it was cool because the rain came and left before the band set up, so we were able to set up everything on the main stage at Big Brutus instead of last year under the canopy. And that just made it so much better. Now, the only thing, he moved it from May to June, and the temperature difference was significant. It was really, really hot. I mean, we were sitting around fans. It was just miserable for the most part. And we did the best we could to stay cool. And we ended up all packing up Saturday afternoon and heading home. And it was... I, like an idiot, entered the cooking competition that Overland Spices was doing. I got suckered in, and as hot as it was on Saturday, I ended up cooking 3 meals, and the wind was blowing so hard I couldn't keep my charcoal lit. Ended up placing second in one and third in another and third in another, I think. But the 2 guys that won, they were so much more prepared than me. I mean, they had like avocados and all this fancy schmancy stuff. One of the guys flew his breakfast burrito in with a drone. That was the guy who actually won. And so, I mean, they went way over the top. And so that was pretty cool. But
McKenna did pretty good in her. She entered the kids' grilled cheese.
Yeah, the kids' grilled cheese.
She came in good. Second, so
that's good. Yeah, I was really...
He gone.
Oh, no. Uh-oh.
Out that quick. No notes. Are you prepared to take over?
No. Uh-oh. He's coming back.
Folks.
I'm back.
There
Sorry, hit the wrong button.
Ooh, you scared me.
Tony was not prepared.
But I was glad that Tate was able to do that. He said that was a dream of his. To do the cooking competition, and they had these big checks made out, and that was really cool. And I cannot wait till you all see the pictures that Nathan took. He has taken some great shots. He said from his own mouth he believes it's the best pictures he's ever taken.
Really?
And so I really, really look forward to posting these and getting some of these out there. I haven't looked at any pictures that I took with my camera. I haven't looked at any of the videos I took with my drone. I've been so busy since I got back. It's just been one of those things, and I can't wait to delve off into that. But what I want you to guys, as we close out this show, Porker, what did you learn from this being your first long trip? Tell us some of the things that you learned.
Well, I mean, how much time you got? Because it's quite a lot. Key for me was packing. I was way overpacked. Could have made it a whole lot simpler with less items like you did, washing them in these places. But never being, I wanted to be covered in everything that I would need for the 6 weeks that we were going to be gone. The planning. I've always been a planner, and this is the first time that I've taken out on such a journey and had no real plan in place. Just knew we were going to go here, here, and here, but the routes in between I normally would have had mapped out there with a contingency to back up. I will be prepared for the next one. Yeah. There'll be no more flying by the seat of the pants.
Well, and even if we had prepared, we would have had to change it because we
would have had plan B.
We planned.
We'd have had to be.
So you got to have 2 plans.
Right, exactly.
Okay. 2 plans.
Yeah, always 2 plans.
Always 2 plans.
Yeah.
Like going into a restaurant and you're a police officer, what do? You sit with your back against the wall and you look for exits
Yeah.
in case you got to make a surprise exit. Listen, now she's going to chime in there. But being in the Boy Scouts, I was always drilled in your head, be prepared, be prepared. I was prepared for everything except for cold.
Yeah, except for cold.
Was not prepared for cold. Next time will be.
Yeah.
The trip was, to me, second to none that I've ever been on solo wise. I will do it again. I'm game to go just about whenever. We'll pack a whole lot less.
What about food? You mentioned something about food too.
Yeah.
When we were near the end.
I took way too much food.
Well, you said that you didn't know that we would run across grocery stores as much as
often as we did, so I was
replenish.
prepared to never see any.
Yeah.
I had everything covered: breakfast, lunches, dinners. When you say we had ramen, people don't get it. We probably had more than Walmart's aisle of ramen.
Yeah.
Between the two of us, we had a lot of ramen. But
Yeah.
the trip was amazing.
I think you guys had more ramen than my local grocery store.
Oh, I guarantee it. I had two of those front runner boxes full of noodles.
Yeah.
Full of noodles.
Yeah.
But the trip was awesome. Wyoming had a lot of potential.
Mm-hmm.
We wasn't in it long enough for me to really get into the trip. But for me, Kansas was the most enjoyable. I loved riding on them dirt roads. I loved going to those monuments. I loved the weather. It was more what I was geared for. This trip was weather-wise, anyway.
Yeah.
I want to go back to Colorado and finish that Enchanted Rockies, and I want to go back to Wyoming and get back in that Medicine Bow. But it is definitely going to be in warmer weather.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Tony, what did you learn?
Well, just having the opportunity to use the gear that I have, and sort of figuring out everything's place, fine tuning that a little bit more where I'm going to keep things, and there's some gear that I'm going to get rid of that I just didn't really care for. For example, the Rotopacks, the fuel Rotopacks, it's gone. I'm not a fan of the Rotopacks. Just for what you get, it's 2 gallons. And one thing that I noticed when we were in Arizona, we stopped, and that thing, the Rotopacks is what, 2 inches thick.
Yeah. When you go up into higher elevations,
it was almost close to triple. I mean, it was like, so, I couldn't hardly get the locking mechanism off of it to get it off and bleed it. And I just stuff like that. I'm gonna put the roam boxes I had in the bed of the truck, so I'm gonna reposition things and store different things in them now, and they'll be up on the roof rack. My bedding will be up on the roof rack, thanks to Bill Cottywumple, by the way, that kind of gave me that tip. He keeps all of his bedding on his roof rack. I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, when you fold your tent, you have to open your window, you can get it right out of the room box. So stuff like that. And then the value of the showers at the Love's truck stop. That is a pretty good shower. When I was driving overnight to meet up with Bill and Deb, I needed a break, so I stopped at like 2:00 in the morning, and I got fuel, and I was there, and I thought, I'll get a shower. It's been a couple of days. So I went in and I got a truck stop shower, and it was really nice.
They're nice.
It was really nice. I was shocked.
Yeah.
So
they keep them pretty nice.
Yeah.
And if you buy 100 gallons of fuel, you get one for free. So
yeah, well, I wouldn't buy 100 gallons.
Well, that would have been over almost $700 too. So
it was a $15 shower, but it was really nice, very clean.
Small price to pay.
Yeah,
a small price to pay. I'm with you. I definitely learned, and as much as I have worked on getting my vehicle perfect, Yeah, I wasn't there 3 days when I had a list of 3 big things I wished I'd left at home
Yeah.
that I did not use the whole time we were there. Now, they would be really nice if I was base camping with the trailer, but if I'm just taking the FJ by myself, I didn't need all that. I was reminded about how often we come in contact with water so I can refill the water supply. I was reminded about the different places that you can stay to get clean. Well, like at the camping cabins at the KOA for a decent price, where you can clean everything out, air everything out, wash clothes. Like Sasha said, Porker took 58 pairs of underwear, 48 pairs of socks, and I took 10 of everything, and that was really more than I needed because a lot of the times, let me tell you, the first 4 nights that we were there, we never changed clothes. We were sleeping in our coats and hoodies and socks and pants and everything because it was so stinking cold. And so we didn't change clothes that often. And that was not something that we had planned for. We had planned to change clothes all the time. I learned to make sure and do your homework, see what national forest you're going to, make sure they're going to be open. Otherwise, that's going to be very difficult.
Yeah.
I was at when the night we were going into Estes Park, I was actually worried. That was one of the few times I was worried about where in the world are we going to stay? Because I learned to use all the apps
Yeah.
about about finding a place to stay or hip camp where that people have private property where you could find it, or
I overlander.
Overlander,
Yeah.
where people have stayed the night at some place before and said, "Yeah, you can stay here. This will work." So we were on those quite a bit throughout that 2 or 3 day stretch through there. So learn to use all your
All
the
the tools.
yeah, everything that's given to you, it's a tool, and learn to use those tools. And then I learned not to take so much food. I didn't have near as much food as Porker did. I was really glad I had a dual zone fridge because I could keep all my meat frozen, and what I didn't eat, I could come home and put it back in the freezer so it wasn't ruined. That was a huge deal for me. And I would move things from one side to the other, keep the things that I didn't want frozen on top, like my eggs, my cheese, and then I would move the meat that I wanted to thaw out to the top in the second zone.
Yeah.
But I had 2 full um, Artemis boxes full of just extra food. I really liked my system that I had. I took my extra food in those Artemis boxes, front runner packs, whatever you want to call them, and I would restock my drawers in the back. So I ate out of my drawers in the back, and then every 3 or 4 days I would restock. And I really like that system. But I could have just taken one of those front runner boxes and left one of them out completely because we stopped at a Walmart or a grocery store about every 2 or 3 days, and so I could have restocked, and that would have been helpful in saving room.
Yep.
Yeah.
But other than that, just learn to improvise and adapt because you never know what's going to happen. Even on the road that we had camped on that last night in Wyoming, we came upon 2 trees that were down that we had to cut, that were blocking the road, and then there was one big tree that was down, but somebody had already made a path around it, and so you've got to, if there's an avalanche, if there's a snow buildup, if there's a road that's closed, you've got to have that plan B. You've got to have a way to figure out where am I going to go? Where am I going to stay? Now, in this area that we were in, I really love the fact that they had those parking lots ever so often with the pit toilets because you can camp there. There were fire rings there, and there were campers there, and I really like that they have taken care of those people. Colorado's considered an outdoor state, and I guess they he only used 4 pair of woes. That's
It
funny.
was 6,
Oh, 6. 6 and 15 days, 16
8,
days,
18.
18 days. So, anyway, I learned a lot,
Yeah.
but even looking back, none of that would have changed me from just up and going,
Yeah.
because you got to get out there, you got to experience it before you learn anything.
Never experience it if you don't get out there.
That's right. So, if you're wanting to take a long trip like this, 2-3 weeks, whatever, I really would have liked to have been gone the 6 weeks. It just didn't work out. We'll try it again one day, but here we are, and we're able to talk about it and tell you what we learned about it. And I really, really had a great time. Really had a great time.
I did too.
And
Me
I'm so
too.
glad I was able to do it with you guys. So, anyway, y'all got anything else?
No, I mean, just be prepared for whatever you do.
Yeah, be prepared for whatever. That's right. Well, I appreciate everybody who has joined us on here. I hope you learned a little bit. I hope you can learn from our mistakes and maybe get out there and take your rig no matter what it is. And I want to say this: a 2-wheel drive van could have went everywhere that we went. Everywhere that we went. So don't think that you have to have a Gladiator on 40s to be able to do a trip like this. You've got whatever you've got. Subaru would have made it. It don't matter. Just get out there and enjoy it. If you like being in the outdoors, I would highly encourage something like this. So
Yeah.
holler at us if you want to know the route, and we appreciate you joining us. And till next week, watch out for number 1, and don't step in number 2.
Go
Have a
Hawks.
great week.
Go.
Join us next week.
Same bat time, same bat channel.
Boom.
Professor and Friends 2022. Woo-woo.
Thank you for watching.
Professor Bats and Friends.
Professor Bats and Friends.
Professor Bats and Friends. Ka-chow.
Enjoy the